What does it take for you to get to the top of the leadership structure in your company? Really, you need to learn how to become an executive leader. Today, I have on the show with me Emily Sander, who wrote the book on hacking executive leadership. Lean in and learn how to keep on developing your career today.
Welcome to Advance with Mike Acker, the podcast designed to help entrepreneurs, business leaders, and professionals alike break through barriers by improving their practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Your host is a best-selling author, executive coach, and founder of the Advance Public Speaking School and Advantage Publishing Group, two companies dedicated to providing an edge for leaders. Find out more about Mike at mikeacker.com. Now here's your host, Mike Acker.
I'm so excited to have on the show today, Emily Sander. So I've known Emily for a little bit over a year. We met actually when she purchased my book, and then we went into a series of conversations about what it means to publish a book. And so over this last year in 2020, she wrote Hacking Executive Leadership, and I absolutely love what she did with it. So I'm super excited to have you on the show. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Thanks, Mike. Really excited to be here.
So first of all, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do. Give us a little bit of feel for who we're talking to.
Yeah, for sure. So I've spent 15 years in the business world, and I've managed and led various client-facing teams and operations teams, usually in rapid growth environments. And I love that. I became a coach after my favorite thing, looking back at all these roles, was the one-on-one interactions with my colleagues or my direct reports, people on my team, and kind of getting them to the next level of their leadership, wherever that was for them. So I became a coach. And I work with business leaders from all around the world, kind of getting their next career step or breaking through some mental block that they've had for a long time. So that's what I do. I currently serve as chief of staff for a small digital marketing company. And then I'm also an executive coach.
Love it. So you have this professional role in which you serve on the C-suite, you are directing the staff, helping them develop, and then for your hobby, you do the same thing for others. So your hobby and your job match up together. So what do you do for fun then?
Coaching is fun for me, actually. So it was once I found that was a thing, and I was like, oh my goodness, you can do this full time and get paid for it. That was definitely my group of people. That was my tribe, so to speak. So I have a lot of fun just connecting with people and hearing their stories and figuring out, hey, how can I help you become successful, whatever that means to you. So I have a lot of fun with that. I also, I'm a gym rat, so I like to go work out and kind of learn about, how to improve your body as well as your mind and everything like that. And those are probably my main hobbies, quote unquote.
Love it. 2020 must have been a little bit difficult then, since you couldn't be in person and you couldn't be at the gym.
Yeah, that was difficult. Had to get creative with, lifting couches or doing things with bands, but made it work. Did a lot of walking, so got my steps in, but definitely glad to be back in the gym and have 2020 past all of us.
Yeah. And everything hopefully winding up here soon. But we're not here to talk about the pandemic, and I'm sure everybody's happy to hear that. We are here to talk about how to become an executive leader. And so you wrote this book, Hacking Executive Leadership. And I know that you were in between several different titles at the first, and then ultimately landed on this idea of how do I get there? How do I do it? So if I got there, how do I do it? A lot of the people I work with have now been raised up to a high level of leadership, and they're thinking, what do I do? I'm sure you've had many clients like that as well. But others are saying, how do I get there? I want to become a VP. I want to become a director, or whatever the titles that they use at that company. And so when you wrote this, you came up with all kinds of great concepts, and we'll dive into a couple of them today. But what was your idea behind hacking executive leadership?
Yeah, so it's individual, right? So everyone is their own person, and they have their own set of experiences and where they're coming from. So hacking into what unlocks the next level of leadership for you is going to be unique. So you kind of have to hack your own code and go into the matrix, so to speak. And, that's what I find really fun about coaching is you're seeing some of the same themes over and over because we're all people, but each individual is kind of their own little puzzle, and kind of unpacking that piece is hacking their next level of leadership. So I thought that, there's leadership, and we can talk about different people's concepts of that and what that means. And then there's also this hacking or unlocking it for an individual. So trying to bring those things together in the title.
Oh, fantastic. Why do you think people even want that role of leadership in the first place? Let's just even back up a little bit. Why do people want to be an executive, a top level leader at whatever size of company that they might work at?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's lots of motivations for that. Some of them are, hey, I want the title. I want to be able to say that, which is one reason. And then other people say, hey, I think I can take this team to the next level. I think I can serve this team, which is a great motivation, servant leadership, waking up each day saying, how can I help my team and help the individuals on my team perform at their best? Therefore, the team does. And of course, that reflects well on you and it helps the company, et cetera. So there's lots of different motivations. I think, being ambitious and wanting responsibility and wanting power is a perfectly valid reason as well. And people kind of want to take that on. A lot of people, it's, I want to prove to myself that I can do this. I want to prove to myself that I can take the next step and be successful at that level. So I think there's so many different motivations for why people do that, but those are some of the common ones I've seen, throughout my time in business and working with clients.
Yeah, definitely. I think that all of those, and probably even some more, I'm even to the point where boredom, I've done the same thing for 20 years, or just let's see what I can do. Very interesting to think through all of those. Let's dive into some of the concepts that are in the book. One of the main ones is this whole idea of swizzle that you created, you developed. In fact, it was one of your original ideas for a title that you brought to me and said, hey, what do you think about this idea right here, as I was walking you through some of the selection process. So talk to us about swizzle and what it means. Well, first of all, define it. And then second, what does it mean for an executive leader and why is it so important?
Yeah. So first of all, glad we went with the title Hacking Executive Leadership. So, but I'm glad swizzle is in there. So the concept of swizzle, an easy example is, let's say you're coming up with a PowerPoint presentation. So you have to put together a deck for a presentation you're doing, and you've got 3 other PowerPoints that you did recently. And so you take the best slides or the best information from each one of those 3, you put it in the new deck, and you make it all its own. So, make sure the flow is consistent and make sure the formatting looks good. And you've kind of swizzled those decks into a new and better deck that's relevant for the presentation you're about to do. So that's the kind of a simple way to understand that framework. And then if you expand that, right, so you take different concepts, and I talk about this in the book, where, for instance, I was listening to a podcast with Floyd Mayweather, who is a champion boxer. I know nothing about boxing, but they were asking him, hey, what makes you successful? What makes you the best boxer? And they were kind of leading him on with, is it your quickness of your feet and how fast your hands are? Is it something to do with your physical training? And he finally said, no, it's my adaptability. And each opponent is different and each round is different. And my ability to adapt, I'm the best at that, which makes me the best boxer. And I was like, oh, got it. So I can apply that to, my business and me being a leader. Hey, am I adapting throughout the day? Am I adapting throughout the week? My team meeting on Monday, am I showing up in the best way there? And is that the same as my team meeting on Tuesday, or is that a different group of people, different message, different information? So being adaptable was something that I took away from that. So that's kind of swizzle in a nutshell.
I love that. The adaptability aspect, which is huge. I mean, now I take adaptogens every day. So I take Pure Calm Plus, and it's just adaptogens. And I love it because what it does for me is it helps my body adapt to the stress of what's going on around me. And so that word has become bigger and bigger, and you use it in terms of leadership. Why do you think that's so paramount of importance for the executive leader?
Yeah. So as you move up, you get more difficult and complex problems to solve. So, nothing gets to your desk without going through, hopefully, 3, 4, 5 really smart people who've tried to solve this, and it gets to your desk. And so you have to think creatively and draw on different resources that you have from all areas of your life. So a lot of people kind of silo their work thinking or business thinking into just that portion of their life, when really they have access to all of this different information and all of these different problem solving abilities. And so that's just something where I was on my way to the airport or something, standing in a line, and I was listening to that podcast, and that clicked for me. And it was something that I knew I could take away. And when the time presented itself in the right way, I remembered that and applied it. So I think it gives people access, even right now, if you're listening, kind of think to other areas of life and think, what was the lesson in that area that I can kind of lift and shift the best parts of and apply them over here. And it'll help you become kind of a more well-rounded leader. And also, once you start looking for swizzles, you'll see them everywhere. So you'll be able to pick these things up as you go on as well.
Hey, you actually name a whole bunch of different types of swizzles in the book. There's this swizzle, that swizzle. And so give us maybe one or two or three swizzles that just you talked about in the book.
So another one was General Stan McChrystal, who also mentioned adaptability. So he is in an entirely different field, right? So he's generalship and he was in Iraq and everything. He talked about that as well. So another key point there is if you hear the same thing in different fields and different disciplines, that's probably a universal one that you should pay attention to. So that's a good one. I also like that he said, I like to give my people the right amount of information, and that varies. So I want to give them enough information about what's happening politically or kind of what's going on the big picture that they can feel informed, but not so much that they're bogged down with kind of the minutia. They can't, perform their tactical kind of pieces in the field. So I thought that was a great swizzle as well. So, okay, I have information that I'm privy to as, part of the executive team. What pieces of that are going to be helpful for my team to know and feel like they're informed and can make good decisions at their level, but not be so bogged down that they're just kind of overwhelmed with the information. They're trying to think about things that they can't control or aren't relevant to them. So I definitely swizzled that aspect as well. And I thought that was a great one.
And there's several other examples on here. I don't want to make this the Swizzle podcast today. I do want to dive into some other areas, but there is this great little graph early on the failure loop. And in that, you talk about the different parts of failure and what it means to use that for good. And we've all heard, probably at this point in time, we've all heard that failure doesn't need to be final, that doesn't need to be fatal. But you had a different spin on what that failure loop looked like and how important it is to actually the success of an executive leader. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, for sure. So, if you pick up the book, you can see a chart of it, but it's a series of loops that are going up and to the right. And basically, you're right, Mike, people do see failure as the end, and I am a failure. So I failed, I'm a failure. And really, if you understand that process, you can transform failure into progress. And how you do that is understanding where you are in that process. And there's a point in the loop where you actually go down. So you're going backwards and you're going the wrong direction, quote unquote. And you have to use the learning and the lesson and drive yourself back up to the higher level. And that transforms it into progress. So you have to take, okay, what did I learn from that? And it might be really painful and difficult to go back and say, what did I do wrong in that situation? Or what could have I done better? What am I going to apply next time? And take that into account and propel yourself forward. So I think in that sense, my personal story is I used to be very, very hard on myself. I used to be very, very critical, and I would berate myself if I made a mistake and if I didn't do well at something. And, I finally said, if this made me better, then I would be perfect by now, because I've done so much, kind of self-criticism. And every time I messed up, I would just kind of take myself to town for it. And I was like, you know what, if that helped, if that was helping, it would have helped by now. And it hasn't. So I, sat down and thought, what actually has gotten me to the next level? And it was, taking what was valuable from that experience and then applying it to the next time. And it might be incremental. It might be a tiny, tiny improvement, but that's fine. It's progress and it'll propel you up. So if you just keep linking those things together, then you'll become a successful person, because you try more times than other people, you fail more times than other people will try, and that makes you successful.
I love it. I love it that you thought through, is this helping me? I've been criticizing myself. Have I gotten better? I'm a pro at criticizing myself. Have I gotten better? I think a lot of people are doing that. A lot of what I do is communication coaching. And as I'm working with somebody, the self-talk is so negative and so defeatist. And, oh, I got to do better. I got to do better. But it doesn't help them do better. So I love that idea. And I love the visual that you have. In fact, you have several graphs in here that are so visual. One of the ones that you have in here is this graph of the lens and ultimately what we're looking through and the lens from which we're filtering it, and then the perception, the understanding that we have. Can you talk to us a little bit about what it means to have the right lens as a leader?
For sure. So everyone sees the world in their own way. One of the big assumptions that we need to check for ourselves is, hey, am I assuming that everyone sees the world the exact same way I do? And there's, 7 billion people on the planet. Chances are they aren't seeing it the exact same way. They can't. They're not you. They haven't had the experiences in the background that you have. And so part of being a leader is self-awareness. That's always half of the equation in any interaction you're having. You're half of the equation. And knowing how you see things, your inherent bias towards things is really important. So, hey, what lens do I have on? And I compare it in the book to having a contact lens on. And people wear contact lenses because, you don't have anything on your face and you can kind of play sports and do different things like that. But also inherent in that is you forget that they're on. And so you don't know that they're on. Same thing with belief sets. So you might have a belief set today that maybe, you were raised with, your parents kind of instilled, or people around you when you were young instilled, and you almost don't know that you have that. And those are called hidden beliefs. And so you're going through life and you're looking through this contact lens, and everything you see is seen through that and defined by that. And you might not even know it's there. So it's good to kind of check, hey, what's my belief set? How am I seeing the world? Some of them that you don't know about might serve you well. And you're like, yep, I want to carry that forward. And some of them might not. And you want to say, oh, let me discard that one. Let me put that one down. A quick example in the book is, a very common kind of guidance from a parent to a child is, don't talk to strangers. If you're walking to school for the first day, don't talk to strangers might be really good advice. If you're an adult and you're in business and you're walking into a networking conference, don't talk to strangers doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's just a quick example, but it's a good thing, if you're listening, do you know the lens that you're looking through? Do you know the beliefs and values that you have that are tinting everything that you see and do?
That's so good, Emily. I think all of us have these different lenses towards others, towards America, towards other countries, towards ourselves. And when we look at ourselves, we're even filtering that through the lens. That's why someone can get up on America's Got Talent and sound horrible because they're looking at their own voice through the lens of somebody who said they sing well when they don't at all. There's on and on. You have these incredible illustrations. You're filled with stories in your book, Hacking Executive Leadership. There's this great spot here on page 136 where you talk about attitude and aptitude. I thought this was just a great one for you to dive into a little bit, give us a little bit more on this content. So what is it that you're talking about here in this graph of attitude, aptitude? And if you're listening to the podcast and not watching the YouTube, you'll see that one is higher than the other. Attitude, the bar is higher there. Aptitude is closer to the threshold. So talk to us a little bit about what this means.
Yeah, for sure. So that's in reference to recruiting and team building. So there's two big buckets. One is aptitude. That's the hard skills someone needs to do the job. So if you're an accountant, you need to know how to do Excel and numbers, et cetera. If you're a coder, coding language, PHP, et cetera. And that's one big bucket. The other one is attitude. So that's basically, what attitude do you bring to work each day? Do people look forward to working with you? Or is it like, oh, I have to talk to that person now? So do you make people's lives easier? Do you have a positive, solution-minded attitude? And those two things can make a top performer. So, if you have someone even in both and they're kind of in the middle, that might be fine. They might be a reliable kind of middle performer, totally fine. If you have someone with a deficit in both, then you need to address that right away because be an underperformer in the wrong role, if they can't do the actual job you're asking them to do and everyone doesn't like working with them, something to pay attention to. Conversely, if you have someone on your team who is high in both levels and high in both buckets, so to speak, then that is a top performer. You should pay attention to that as well and say, hey, can I give them more responsibility? Am I recognizing them for their efforts? And so just having in mind the two big buckets, aptitude and attitude, is great for looking at your existing team and saying, okay, where do people kind of fit right now? And then also for recruiting. So when you're recruiting and making the big decision to bring people onto your team, where would they fit in these two buckets? And that's kind of a good way to frame up that concept for team building. And I go into a book, in the book, many more details about how to kind of do that. But those are two big buckets to pay attention to.
One of the things I love about your book is it's got more of the encouragement aspect, but then it's got very, very detailed plays. And it's in the whole section on playbook, and you walk through all these different types of plays, hiring, and there's a spot where for a couple pages it's bulleted, sub-bulleted, and sub-bulleted, because you get very detailed into some different kind of conversations that you could have. Ultimately, as an executive leader, you are very responsible for the success of the company. And so you need to look at it both from the big view and the detailed view. And Emily does a great job of walking people through this. Let's go through one last part of the book, and you talk about the 3 circles and how they know how to help you stay cool and when to lose it productively. So talk to us a little bit about these 3 circles.
Yeah, for sure. So 3 circles, and for those of you who aren't watching, think of 3 circles in a horizontal line, and it's a math equation. So circle 1 plus circle 2 equals circle 3. So in life, we have events and external things happen that kind of drop in our lap. So that's circle 1. So, oh my goodness, I'm in a team meeting and, Joe over here decided to blow up and just start yelling at everybody.
Stupid Joe.
And so, then you have to think about, okay, go to circle 3 really quick and say, what do I want as my final outcome? So what is the most favorable outcome? What am I trying to get to? Okay, in this case, I want to keep people calm. I want to get the meeting back on point and on focus. So then that leads you to circle 2. So what do you need to do and say, and how do you need to show up in that situation to try to get it to circle 3? And so it might be, hey, Joe, I hear what you're saying. I hear you're frustrated. Maybe touch on a few valid points he said, and then refocus the meeting back to the agenda or the task at hand. And that gives you the best chances to get to your most favorable outcome in circle 3. So you can use this in many different areas of your life, and it can be a very quick thing that you do, but just having that framework in mind is really helpful because, one, you have to determine what you want to have happen instead of having a knee-jerk reaction. So a lot of people are like, well, I'm just going to react to the situation however I feel like. And as a leader, it's like, what do I actually want out of this situation? And then it also prompts you to say, okay, how do I need to show up? What do I need to do? What action do I need to take to get it there? And it might be something that you don't feel like doing. You might feel like yelling back at Joe and telling him, all the stuff that he is and where he can go. But that's not going to get you to your favorable outcome. So 3 circles is a great concept to keep in mind for business and also outside of business for that matter.
You could always go out after the meeting and yell at Joe if you want. If you want to yell at Joe, because
that's circle 4. That comes later. Just
yeah. Joe sounds like a jerk. But we all have those people, and we're all in those spots. And that's one of those. This is one of those spontaneous moments. But there are so many other moments that are not. You can't just react in the moment. You can't think through. But there's a lot of situations in leadership where you do have time to go. Okay, I got circle 1. And then you have really some time to think about, okay, what's the outcome that I want in circle 3? So what do I need to do? In fact, I'd say in so many ways that is leadership. This is the circumstance that we've been given, COVID. What do I want out of this next year? What do I need to do now for it? So great thoughts. I love that you use metaphors, you use pictures, you use stories, you use statistics. You use some famous anecdotes and you tie it all together, and you did a great job creating something really no one else is talking about the way you did, especially when you talk about swizzle. And I've read a lot of leadership books. So this is Hacking Executive Leadership. And on the cover, I just thought it was fascinating. You got the weakest piece on the chessboard, looking himself in the mirror and seeing the most powerful piece on the chessboard. And so much of it is seeing yourself and believing that you can get there. Is there any last minute thing that you like to say? And then, of course, talk to us about where we can find you and where we can find the book.
Absolutely. The best place to find me is my website. So it's nextlevel.coach. That's all one word. So just type in nextlevel.coach and you can check out the book there. And if you're interested in coaching, then you can also contact me through the contact page and we can get in touch there.
Fantastic. And you can find the book, I believe, in Amazon, or you can order it through Barnes & Nobles or Walmart, Target. It's internationally recognized. And you got a hardcover, you got an audio book, you got the ebook. So you got all the different formats that people are doing it. And I listened to your audiobook and it's just done fantastically well, really easy to listen to. And you can listen to it in a couple different commutes and grab a hold of the content. So Emily, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate your content, for sharing with us the idea of Swizzle and some other ideas as well.
Thanks so much, Mike.
Great. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Take a moment to subscribe, to share. Is there someone that you know that wants to grow in their leadership, or there's somebody who's at the top and they feel like they're stuck? I highly recommend Hacking Executive Leadership, as well as sharing this podcast, this YouTube with them. Until next time, thanks for being part of today's show.
Thanks for listening to Advance with Mike Acker, a podcast designed to provide an edge for leaders through improving practical leadership skills and increasing confidence in speaking. Mike is a best-selling author and business owner who has helped many leaders increase their skills and their confidence, propelling them to new heights in their personal and professional endeavors. Join an incredible group of professionals taking the steps to become better leaders at connect.stepstoadvance.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.